So what I'm going to do, I don't know if we're going to get any additional people. So this is kind of what I'm hoping to get done today. I think we can do most of this. Some of this is going to be review for some of you. So what I would like you to do in just a couple of minutes is log into ArcGIS and do what I'm going to do here. I'm just going to demonstrate. So I'm going to go to, I've made what I call a practice map. And you should have your map for your hometown. So this is where you're going to end up actually doing this. Across the top of the screen, there are several tools. We did the directional tool last week. We've used the measure tool to help us find latitude and longitude. But today we're going to use the bookmark tool, okay? So what the bookmark tool does is it allows you to set several zoom in, out, simple for people. So if I wanted to add a bookmark, I would go here, I'd click in it, and then it's going to tell me. So I'm going to say, oh, this one, USA, and then I just press return. I've added that. Then a second bookmark would be just to kind of zoom into the state of Minnesota. So I'm going to add that one. And then I'm going to put a view for, and if anybody's not sure what I'm doing here, I'm holding the shift key down and then drawing a box as another way to zoom in. The other way is to kind of double click. So now I've got a map that includes the Minneapolis, St. Paul, and my hometown Faribault. So I'm going to add that bookmark, which is Twin Cities. I don't need the big W there. So I've got that one. And then I'm going to zoom into a Faribault view. And then the last one is going to be a close-up. So I'm going to move into Faribault, maybe at about this level, get it about where I want it.
Jim?
Yes.
When you zoomed, is that just a simple click and drag to make a box and then it'll zoom right in on that area?
Yep, you hold the shift key down and use your trackpad or your mouse and just draw a box and it zooms you right in.
Okay, so you got to hold the shift button down and
yep.
then.
And the other way to quick zoom is double click on a spot and it'll zoom in.
Right, okay.
So I'm going to add one more bookmark. This one got oh. You know what just happened there? I got an untitled one. I want to get rid of that. So that's not what I wanted. I wanted a little bit closer here. And now I'm going to have close up. So here's the beauty. USA, Minnesota, Twin Cities, Faribault, view of Faribault, and a close-up. I mean, so that can be available for people to use for zooming in and out, like in a story map as well. You can actually make that available for them. So what I would like you to do in the next 5-10 minutes is open up your, I'm going to stop. Does anybody have a question before I stop sharing? Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing. So what you can do at this point is push the Zoom screen off to one side, and then go ahead and open up your ArcGIS account and open up your hometown map, and then make on your map at least 3 or 4 bookmarks that you think would be useful to help people zoom in and out to different locations. And it's also when you're working on things, it's nice to be able to zoom in and zoom out real quickly too. So any questions? So last time, and by the way, this is the spreadsheet that I made from all your entries for your hometowns. And I put them on the map. So the next thing we want to learn how to do is how to configure your pop-up. I want to double sure and make sure that's exactly what we're working on here. So configuring pop-ups, this is a layer that you made, so this is going to be relatively easy to modify. So I'm going to go to my Faribault map, and I'm going to zoom into Faribault. And then I made a spreadsheet on the Faribault schools. So I've got the name of the school, a little information about each one. I found a website for each one. I found an image for each one. And then I did a latitude and longitude for each one. And then I loaded it onto the map. So at this point, I haven't modified it at all. So they're when they come on, as you can see, they're just little black dots. So sometimes when they come on, they'll default to the name of the place. So when you scroll over your layer, in this case, Faribault Schools, you have 4 tools or 5. You've got a legend, which will pop up if you click on it, a chart, which will basically look like the spreadsheet with the information in it. You've got a styling tool, a clustering tool. If you got a ton of points, that's kind of fun, and you've got the ability to do some analysis. So the styling tool is the one we're going to work with today. It's the circle, the square, and the triangle. So when I click on it, it just basically takes you through the step. Number 1, it says choose an attribute to show. So if I did the school name, I said, okay, I want that to show. It's now going to give each one of those schools a separate color, which would be one way to do the map. But I'm not going to choose that way because I want all the schools to have the same symbol indicating that they're schools. If you're looking at it and you just see a red and a blue and a purple, there's no indication that they're all similar in any way, shape, or form. So usually, unless there's a good reason not to do it, I always pick at the very top, show location only. So, but I don't like black dots, okay? That's not what I want to have on the screen. I want to have a symbol that indicates, yeah, that's a school. I can see that when I look at it. So step 2, it says, okay, pick a drawing style. And there are a couple options right now. A heat map is if you have a lot of items and you want to show where the most of them are clumped together. That would be the option, but we're going to go with the single location symbol. So you get a button to click just called Options. And then at the top, you've got 3 things. One is to change the symbol, but you've got your transparency. So if I move it all the way over there, the dots are going to disappear. As I slide it to the left, they're going to begin to reappear. And when I go all the way back to the left, now we can see them. The other thing that you need to understand about ArcGIS Online is if I were to set that at that level and I were to zoom out, the dots are going to continue to show. It's not letting me zoom out here. I'm going to click OK. So the dots will show all the way out to the rest of the world. They're always going to show. But that's not what I want. So I'm going to zoom back in. I'm going to go back here. I'm going to click my options. You get a little drop-down menu here, and it gives you options for where you want it to show up. So I really don't want it to show up till I get to about the county level. So if I click county, it automatically sets that. And if I get further out than a county, the dots will disappear. Okay. Well, now let's look at the dots. They're little black dots. So if I click on symbols here, I could leave them circles if I wanted to and have them all be the same. I could make them all, for instance, green stars. And at the top, this shows you the actual size they're going to appear. And down here, it's a little box that gives you the actual pixel size. So if I slide this to the left or right, if say I set it about 25 and click on it, now I've got green dots that are all the same, but that still doesn't really tell me they're schools. So there are some options in here. There's a drop-down menu called Shapes at the top usually, and then it's a drop-down. And if you go down, one of the options is People Places. So if I click on that, one of the options is a fairly recognizable schoolhouse. So I'm going to go with that, and I'm going to leave it at that size. And I'm going to click OK. And then I'm going to be done with that. So now what I've managed to accomplish is to style my map. So now I've got a set of symbols, and if I click on them, I can see the information in it. We'll get to the configuring the pop-ups later. So let's review that one more time kind of quickly. How did I do that? There are 5 tools right in the layer, right below it. I want the one that says change style. I click on it. I've got it set for show location only. I go to my option menu. And in this case, everything's okay. I click on symbols. And at this point, I could change it to anything. I mean, there's a fairly extensive list of symbolizations here you could use, but I just happened to pick the one called schools. Maybe you could do an American flag. You could actually import an image if you wanted to. You could find one on the internet, and if the URL worked correctly, you could actually use that as well. So you could actually design your own symbol if you want to, but that's kind of not something that we need to do. And then once you've got everything set the way you'd like it to be, then I'm ready to save. And now as I zoom out, now they disappear. When I got to that level, they disappeared. So I'm going like, you know what? I don't even need to see them past this point. So if I wanted to, I could go to the layer, and there's the 3 little buttons over here. And there's this visibility. I could actually take that slider manually and move it over. So the little black marker is where they are and where they can be seen. If I do that, if I zoom out one more time, they're probably going to disappear, which they do. So that way you can set your symbols to be seen where you want them to be seen. Now, what happened is I saved it, but this is not the view I want when and this is another reason to have bookmarks. I prefer this to be the view that opens up when I open the map. So I'm just going to go back and resave it. Okay. All right. Is it? I'm going to stop my sharing. Okay. So I'm assuming each one of you has a map that you can open up and have you add, if you want to turn your mics on. Does everybody have a layer that they could do that with, that they've created for their map?
Can we just keep adding to the?
Yeah.
All right. So the next thing I want us to do is to configure a pop-up. So I'm going to show you on my map that I made, and then I'm going to let you practice on the map that we made of our hometowns, and then you can go to your map and actually do it. So here's my map I made of Faribault. And you can see the schools are not showing up. So I'm going to zoom in. So here they are. So when I click on one, it's just raw information straight from the spreadsheet. The name of the school, the note I had, the link to the website, the link to the image, and then the latitude and the longitude. Now, you've got some choices. You can just leave it as is and say, okay, that's right. It's not too much information. But as you look at the pop-up, are there any categories of information there that a person looking at it really doesn't need to know? I would say latitude and longitude for sure. You know, why do they need to know that? That's not really necessary. And then would it look better if the image was inside the pop-up? If I don't put it inside the pop-up, if I click, it'll take me to the image. But I'd prefer to have that image inside the pop-up. So how do I make the pop-up look the way that I want? Over here in the layer, we have, again, those three little dots to the right-hand side. If I click on it on the drop-down menu, when it comes to pop-ups, I can remove the pop-up, meaning if they click on it, it won't show up, or I can configure it. So this is your little menu that comes up. Now, sometimes there might be something by default that it decides to put in the title. In my mind, I'm going, okay, I would like the title of the pop-up to be the name of the school. So to the right-hand side, if I click this little box, I get the list of all the things that were in the spreadsheet, and I want the name of the school. So I'm going to click that. And then as I go down, the next thing is a list of attributes. Okay, so it's basically going to give me the same list. Now, everything that is in the pop-up that it's showing is checked. So if I don't want it to show inside the pop-up, I literally just uncheck it in the category called display. So the school name is now going to be the title. I don't need to see that. I want them to see the note. I want them to be able to access the website. I want them to see the image, but I don't need them to see the latitude and the longitude. So I'm going to unclick those. And now, if I go back, Shattuck St. Mary's is now the title. Nice big bold face. The note is there, the website's there, and the image is there. So now the last thing is, okay, how do I get the image to show up inside of the pop-up as well? So we basically repeat the same process, but there's another place where I can put the image in. So I go back to configure pop-up. And as I scroll down, I get a couple add things, and one of them is called pop-up media. So I want to add, I click on add, it says, okay, what do you want? An image, a pie chart, a bar chart, a column chart, a line chart, which would mean there had to be data in there that they could make that with, and I don't have any of that, but I do have an image. So the first thing it says is, okay, what do you want for a title? I know ahead of time something that I'm going to actually do, so I'm going to put in here click on image for larger view. And what that means is when they click on it, the URL will take them on the internet and they'll see the full-blown picture. I'm not going to have a caption. So that's the title. Now it's basically we're skipping caption and says, okay, where am I going to find this image? So I click the little box here and I scroll down till I see the word image and say that's where you're going to find it. And then in order for them to click on it and go to the big image on the internet, I'm going to do it one more time down here. Image. I'm going to click OK. I'm going to click OK. And now when I click on it, there's the image of Shattuck. Oh, I got to do one more thing. After I decide to put the image in, I no longer need to have that information inside the pop-up. So I'm going to get rid of it here, click it. So now I've got St. Mary's, the note, the image, and if I click on the image, it takes me here. So now, in my opinion, this is about as much information as you could possibly want in a pop-up. You don't want it to go on and on and on and on, but and now this applies to every single school that I've made, not just to that one. So there's Bethlehem Academy. Every single pop-up will look the same. And of course, the website will take them to the website for the school if they want to explore that. So on your outline for today, if you'll scroll down, it should take you to this map. And when you get it up in the upper right-hand corner, it should say modify map. If you click on that, it's going to allow you now to save it. And for some reason, it's directing me. I'm surprised I can't do this. It's going to direct you to log into your account. It's going to, for some reason, take me to this other account that I have. I'm just going to save it as a copy. And now basically you own the map. It's no longer my map, it's your map. And these are all the places that you people picked. Okay. Now you've got two layers, they're identical. The top one is been already configured. I typed in hometown of, and then it says Kelly Swanson. It's got some information about it. So how did I do that? I'm going to turn it off. And there's another one called unconfigured. I made them a different color. So this is just for practice. I'm going to go down to configure. By default, the name of the person is there, but what I'm going to do is in front of it, I'm going to type hometown of and leave a space. I'm going to go down here and I'm going to turn off the things. I don't need the timestamp. I don't need the name of the person. I've got the hometown, its importance. I don't want the latitude and longitude. There's no images or anything here, but I've just now configured it. So it now says hometown of Kelly Swanson. And it's just got the importance and that's it. And all of them will look the same. So I'm just going to go back to here. And if you would just go to this, open up the map, and it should say modify the map. Click it and save it. Hopefully it'll just allow you to save it into the account that you're logged into right now. And then see if you can configure the pop-up. And I'll be here to answer questions, obviously, if you're having a problem. So I'm going to unshare. Is anybody have a question at this point? Looking at our list of things, you could now go to the map that you made and you could configure it for your hometown. Hopefully that'll be a second time around. And by the time you get done with that, you'll be pretty good at configuring pop-ups. There's a little bit more to it. So the last two subjects I'd like to have us take a look at is if you have numbered data as a part of your spreadsheet, then you can do some kind of interesting things. So I'm just going to show you something that I did very quickly. I found an article that says, okay, these are the best and worst states for retirement. I'm retired, so I'm looking around, just kind of curious. And then I got to this. And right away, I knew I could copy and paste that data into a spreadsheet. So what I did is I went up here, went down to the bottom. I copied it. Where's my little spreadsheet? I opened up a fresh spreadsheet, put my cursor in the upper left-hand box and put paste, and it literally pasted all that data into this spreadsheet. So what I would like, I'm just going to save you the time and effort of doing what I did. If you go to this link right here and click on that, it should give you that spreadsheet. And then does everybody know how to make a copy? File, make a copy, and then you'll have your own. Go ahead and do that.
Hey, done.
All right. I'm kind of waiting for Sean to return so he knows what to do. So what I'd like you to do, I just made a map I called practice map, but for the purpose of this, we're going to add that layer to a map and then learn how to symbolize the size of things by the numbers. So I've made a map just called practice map. If you want to just open a brand new map of some kind, you might even be able to just press new map. So before we do anything, if you can see my screen right now, a couple things you have to remember. The first thing you need to do once you import your data, click the number 1 on the left-hand side and then go to View, Freeze, 1 row. So we freeze the top row. So those are the column headings. So the map knows, what each item is and where it should go. And then once you've done that, if you go down to, we have to download as comma separated values. I think the spreadsheet, and then decide where we're going to put it. I'm just going to put it on my desktop. I've already done this, but I'm just going to do it here. Okay, so I've got it. So if you're looking at the spreadsheet, basically the number means that the rank in each one of the categories. And of course, you can adjust the size of the categories if you want to. So the number one state for retirement is Nebraska. And the state you evidently don't want to retire in is Maryland or New York or Alaska. Those are way down at the bottom of the list. And the way they came up with it was doing a combined score: affordability, crime, culture, things that are available, the weather, and wellness. So they've got some categories of information there. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen. So as I was telling everybody, the numbers on the spreadsheet are ranking numbers for the best places, states to retire in the country. So now we're going to add that to our map. So we go to the add button and we go to add layer from file. And then we choose the file and we have to find it. I've got it right here, best states. And here's the only thing you have to be, when I say import the layer, you're going to get this little message right here. And basically it says, you didn't give me a latitude and longitude. Where am I supposed to put these places? So it gives you three choices: coordinates, addresses, or places, and none add as a table. The one we want is the one that's already in default. And where it says state, the word state should be highlighted. If you just click on it, that's basically all you need to do. And then if you click add to the map, they're now all on the map. So now what do we have? We've got circles, which represent what? Well, they actually represent, the smaller the circle, the what? The better the state is to retire, essentially. So I'm going to go to the symbolization here. So this is kind of interesting because you got some options that you go. We're working with numbers here, so we can do different things. Right now, it's defaulting to what they call counts and amounts. And as you can see, the 50th state would get the biggest circle and the number one state would get the smallest circle. Well, if I was going to make the map, I think I'd reverse that and have the larger number be better than the smaller number. So if I click option, it's giving me the scale right here. If I click the inverse, it just does it in reverse order now. So if I zoom in and I click on Nebraska, state, nope, try Nebraska rather than Kansas. Nebraska, number one rank, affordability, crime. So this pop-up, the way it is actually pretty good. I don't know if I need to do a whole much with that. Okay. So why don't you guys go and see if you can get it inverted to look like mine. Should I unshare? Does that help, or do you want me to just leave this on the screen?
It doesn't matter to me, Jim.
Okay. Now, if this were statistics like birth rates or death rates or income or stuff like that, then the circles would have a lot more meaning, obviously, than they do just as a ranking. But I
Yeah.
just wanted you to see the idea of what happens when you have numbers to
Do you
work
have any idea on what culture means on this? I mean, is it like some progressive culture or?
with. Well, if I go back to the original article,
Oh yeah, I guess I didn't look there.
by the way, I don't know if I gave you the link to the article. I can send you the link to the article as. See if they go down here and give some actual detail. Best dates for retirement. Worst. Arts, number of arts, entertainment, and recreational
Oh.
businesses per capita.
Okay, Minnesota would probably do well in that category then.
Yeah, the weather kind of gets us.
Yeah, but then again, it's a some people love 4 seasons, so.
Yep. So our rank is 40th. I mean, we're not.
Holy cow! I wonder why. Oh.
Yeah, and Iowa is 2.
All right.
So I just wanted to show you one more thing here with this. For some reason, they default to this color, which I don't necessarily like. There are some things we can do. If I go to symbols and I go to fill, I can pick a different color. So let's just say I pick green. Now they're all green. I might like that color better. And then the last thing I wanted to do right here, and this is kind of something, the question is, how did they come up with these categories? Why is 40 a cutoff point and then 25 and then 15? So I'm not exactly sure how they came up with their breakdown. So if I want to reclassify the data, there's a little box over here that says classified data. And now Minnesota looks a little bit different. I've got natural breaks means, okay, wherever the data seems to break naturally into groupings. So 1 to 13, 13 to 26, still look like it's kind of evenly divided. There's no real natural breaks, but I could add a category. So right now it's based on 4. I could go to 5, so there should be about 10 in each category. So 1 to 10, 10 to 20, 20 to 30. If you're doing actual statistics, but that's, so you have some power to change the way the numbers appear on the map. So I just wanted to show you that. That's, if you're working with statistics. Now, the other question is, why can't I color in the whole state? Well, there is an option for that. I can't color in the whole state here, but I can switch from this option to counts and amounts by color. So now if I go that way, each state has a color. Kind of based on this, I'm going to reclassify the data and put it into 5 categories. And can I invert it here? I should be able to, maybe I can't. I'm going to invert it so the dark states, 5 categories. And then the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make the circles bigger. So now the map, the lighter the color, the better, the darker the color, so anyway, I just wanted to show you how to do counts and amounts. And they're kind of evenly dispersed around, but it's something, if you've got statistical data, that you can obviously put on your map.
So
Um,
is there, so I just have a question about, and this might be like higher level, but is there a way to create like a choropleth map? Like you have the state, why can't you color in the whole boundary of the state?
yeah, no, there's one more category of data I think that you need in order to be able to do that.
Yeah,
And I don't know what it is if you're importing your own data. If you're importing data from like the Living Atlas, so
yes.
for instance, I'm going to quick go back to share. I'm going to turn this one off and I'm going to go, okay, let's go to Living Atlas. Let's go to income. Oh, spell it right. So here I've got the average US household income. So if I add that to the map, now I've got the map kind of like Molly was talking about. Now I've got a choropleth map and they're colored in. And if I
And so
look at the
whoever created
legend,
that map layer must have known how to.
yeah, well, this is a curated map layer from Esri. So my legend is over here. The nice thing about the Living Atlas layers, as you zoom in now, you go from states to counties.
Yeah.
And as you zoom in to the county level, you're eventually going to go to census tracts.
Yeah.
And then you can go down to individual block areas. So you can get detailed information at all kinds of different layers. So I'm going to see, because I've had the same question, Mel. I'm going like, why can't I turn that into a choropleth map? Why do I have to look at these circles? But that's on the Esri end and the way they've designed the software when you import a spreadsheet. Okay. So I only wanted to do one more thing, I think. We've got the spreadsheet, we've added the data. Oh, have we done anything with filtering data?
Not that I know of.
Nope, not yet.
Okay. So why doesn't everybody on their practice map do what I just did? Go to add, browse from Living Atlas, type in the word income and get the 2019 USA average household income and then add it to your map. So go ahead and do that.
That's a Living Atlas layer?
Yep. Can you see my screen, Sean?
I do.
Add, browse Living Atlas, and then in the search box, just type the word income, press return, and it should be near the top.
Yep. To
And
USA.
then just add it to the map.
Got it.
So I'm going to turn it back on. So this is probably not the best map to use as an example. But if you'll notice on the left, I've got a drop down. These are actually sub-layers of the map. That's why I can go from country to state to county to county to county to zip code to tract to block group, okay? So let's just say at the state level, I want to isolate one state. I don't want to see all the states. So the tool you want right over here is the one that looks kind of like a little filter, but if you hold your cursor over it, it does say filter. If I click on it, I get a drop-down menu. On the left are all the different categories I could filter by. So disposal, I mean, this is all the data that's actually in. If I wanted to see just the household incomes between 100,000 and 150,000, basically, I could just map those. But I'm looking for a state. So right at the very bottom almost, I've got state name, state abbreviation. So I'm just going to pick abbreviation. The second category says is, and then I'm going to click unique, and I should get a drop-down menu with the abbreviations. And if I go down to Minnesota and apply the filter, all the other states are gone, and the only state I'm looking at is Minnesota. Now, the bad news is when I zoom into the next level, I'd have to redo it again for this county, which you could do. So this was probably not a good example to give you where we got all these multiple layers here. But anyway, the same thing happens. So you could, if you took the time, you could take all the layers and have them just be Minnesota only by using the filtering system. So that way you can kind of isolate things that you want kids to look at. And now that we've got Minnesota here, so one of the options for layers is US topographic maps, which is a little different than topographic maps. So if I add that and I zoom into Faribault, I now have the most recent topographic map of Faribault, Minnesota. Interesting, we zoom in. Now, I was able to find, this is Faribault in 1953 at kind of the wrong scale. And out here, this is the planned route of 35W. It wasn't even built yet. Then I found a better layer at a better scale, 2400. This is Faribault in 1960. And then I was able to find a 1991 map, which I think is the way the other one went. So depending on your city, there is a way to find historical topographic maps that would fit. If you live in the Twin Cities, you can get maps back to the late 1800s. What did it look like back in the 1800s? So on my Zoom at the very bottom, I've given you a link to the USGS Historical Map Explorer. So this is where you're going to find the layers. So I'm going to open this up. And this will take you, so I'm going to just type in, because I know the maps are more interesting, I'm going to type in Bloomington. So they give you choices, Minnesota, Illinois. I want Bloomington, Minnesota. And then I'm just going to click right in the middle of Bloomington. So now it's going to give me maps that include Bloomington in it, going as far back as 1895. So this is a map, and here's the key thing that you have to write down, which is what I'm going to do right now. I need to know the scale of the map that I'm going to ask for, which is 1 to 66,000 or 6250 or 500. And then I need to know the exact date. It's 1896. All right. So I go back to my Faribault map, or I'm going to go back to Bloomington. I'm going to move the map to a different location. I'm going to turn this layer off because I don't need it anymore. Where did I? Oh, that was my base map. I'm just going to go back to a regular base map here. And I'm going to turn these layers off. So with that information now, I go to the Living Atlas. And I go over here to this filter. And it doesn't give me the category, so I'm going to go historical. And so now it's going to give me a list of maps, and this is the one I want. It's 1 to 62. So I'm going to go this, and I'm going to add it to the map. And now I'm looking at Bloomington in 1896. There's things there. Every little black dot is a house or building that was existing in Bloomington at the time. And this map is fairly extensive. It covers most of the Twin Cities. Now, if you live out in a rural area someplace, this one might, there we go. Takes a while to load. Now I can, the other thing I can do is, this happens to be the only map that it's going to show, but if I go to the drop-down menu, it's going to give me image display order. And if I type the date in 1896, because there may be more than one map that's at that scale, so that's going to actually make sure that's the map that I'm looking at. So with this one, it doesn't matter because it's the only map at that scale that's available. So questions on that?
No, I'm good.
Have you done that before?
No, it's really interesting. Thank you.
Yeah. So that's kind of, you can fool around with that, but the only thing you have to do is remember the map scale and the date. And then once you've got that at the Explorer site, which would be here, you can go any place in the country and do this. So if I change it to Faribault, and I click here, all of a sudden I don't have maps going. The earliest map I can find, it's included on a map of St. Paul, but that's that one where the scale is so small, you don't get much detail. If I got that right, I can't remember. But here's one, it's on this map, but it's 1 to 25, 250,000. Here's another one right here. And it gives you a little image of what the, you're going like, well, that's 1960. I could use this one, must have been the 1959 map. And this is the one I used for 1953. So anyway, that's one more way you, if you're telling the story of your hometown, you could add some more detail to it.
So Jim,